Hey guys, so I've been talking about this topic for probably 3 or 4 years now. I've done a lot of different leadership panels and discussions with the actual agencies, YGREN and Hero and PACE, and it's very interesting to see what's happening in today's market regarding these programs. Let me just give you some background. The state of California and these agencies have actually been raising taxes on homeowners as a result of putting some energy efficiency upgrades into their properties. They're selling them on new window panes, blowing in insulation in the attic that may or may not be necessary, solar systems, bigger air conditioning units, and a bunch of other things that, in my opinion, the homeowner might benefit from, but the cost at which they're paying for this, there are much smarter and better ways of doing this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all about the efficient appliances. In fact, I have my green certification as well. There are loan programs out there for energy efficiency upgrades and different things, but what's happening in these programs is that they're actually not loans. They're not loans. The state is not verifying that the homeowners qualify. They're not running credit or income ratios, and what they're doing is they're actually putting a bond, a tax amount on the property in the amount of 15, 20, 25, I've even seen them as high as almost $40,000 in energy efficiency upgrades. The point is that these programs, Hero, YGREN, and PACE, have created an increase in the tax base for these homeowners. And if those taxes are already impounded into the monthly payment, by the time the bank comes back around and cycles through, now you're under impounded for your taxes. I mean, it could be like 6 months to 8 months since the taxes have been updated. And if you're paying $25,000 to $40,000, I've seen these amounts be upwards of an additional $400 or $500 a month in monthly payment. And it's just absolutely crazy to me that the homeowners don't understand the cost and implication of all of this either. So, get some good information, find out before you do the transaction, from your real estate agent, your lender, somebody who's in the know about all of this so that you can confirm the impact of your financial obligations for doing some of these upgrades. But here's the point. Because it's not a loan, the CFPB is not verifying that they have the ability to actually repay this debt that they're getting involved with. Normally on a car, an auto loan or credit cards, they're getting some kind of a pay stub or verification of income to see if you can actually afford to make the payments on this. But they're not doing it. The CFPB has no oversight over any of this. There's no income qualification, there's no debt to income ratio. So it's really, really interesting. Many of the homeowners will now have to pay off these tax liens associated with their property because conventional loan programs now will not be able to subordinate or fund the loan with the tax liens there. FHA used to allow it, FHA no longer allows it, and so the homeowners actually have to pay off the taxes before they close. Now, what does that do? Well, let's say if you're selling your house for $500,000 and you owe $300,000, and the tax lien or the tax amount that you owe for the payoff of the program is $30,000, then not counting in a bunch of other fees, then you're basically netting $170,000, right? That disregards commissions, closing costs, and whatever, right? So instead of getting $200,000 in equity, you're actually getting $170,000 in net equity. So it's good to be prepared for that, but you should know that that's actually going to eat into your equity despite what you think is, happening with all of that. So it's very interesting. But so what happens when you owe $380 and the house sells for $400 and you owe $30,000 for these taxes and you have to pay for your commissions, your closing costs, etc.? How does that all work? Well, that's what we're seeing right now. You have a 30-year fix, but you may not be able to afford the monthly payment with the new taxes. And also, how are you going to pay all that off? Essentially, you're going to have to come in with cash to close, or, possibly it's going to trigger maybe even a short sale. So it's not going to happen in every single situation, but it's definitely interesting to see what's happening in this market. So you have to do your research, right? Mello-Roos is a very common thing in our area. And Mello-Roos comes in a bunch of different forms, but essentially they are supplemental taxes for roads, street lights, streets, roads and streets, and that kind of stuff. Basically the capital improvements for the development and the area that the city provides. It used to be included in the price of the home, but in the early 2000s to 2010, with new construction, they were actually putting those amounts on as a tax supplement instead of including it in the sales price. So it's a different way of doing it. Now, every property is going to have a slightly different amount, but I've seen the Mello-Roos or supplemental taxes be anywhere from $400 additional per year, upwards of $4,000 a year, depending on what area you're actually in. So it's good to check that out. It's good to be mindful of it, because it can take your 1.21% tax base and it can actually increase it as high as 2.7, or in even some cases 3.3% of your total sales price. So just be mindful of that. Here in California, we try to calculate your taxes based on what we think they're going to be in the future, to make sure that you're not going to be under impounded for your taxes, insurance, principal and interest payments if you put everything in together. So the Mello-Roos is usually like a 25-year deal, so it does get paid off at the end. The Mello-Roos, you're probably not going to prepay it. But it definitely makes a difference when you're looking at different properties, to compare apples to apples with the tax base and make sure you're asking all of the right questions. So, and for that matter, each state does have a slightly different way to calculate taxes. So message me individually if you have questions about taxes and how they're calculated in each state. I am licensed in Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. So if you have questions about financing in those states, I'll be adding some more next year. But that's what we got going right now. And I'm so excited to help you and all of your clients find properties and get financed in those states. If you have a specific question about something going on with your personal deal, if you need some help, or if you have any questions about any of these programs and how you're being affected by them, please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your story. I heard one of my past clients was a veteran, or is a veteran, and he had a really tough time with his 100% financing loan that we got him in. He bought the house. He decided to go ahead and go with one of these programs, and we're trying to consolidate it and get it all done, but because of the value of the property and his income, we were not able to consolidate that. We're doing everything we can to help him out, but in some cases it's really interesting. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Hero, YGREN, and Pace Loans on Woke Wednesdays in Real Estate. I'm Sean LaRue. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, comment below, make sure you share on the socials. I really appreciate seeing all of you again, and thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, stay hungry and stay positive.